I will
That's
keep
okay.
trying.
We are fine with you being on your phone. And go ahead and kick off
Okay.
the meeting. Commissioner Fowler is here.
Okay, and Commissioner, I call the meeting to order, the Budget Committee for the Oregon Racing Commission. Since I can't see anybody, if there are people that need to be recognized, please, if Commissioner Fowler could do that, I would appreciate it. Okay, so anyway, welcome. I'll still try to get on my computer, but first thing we need to do is approve the agenda. What we've got is just a budget report and then hub funds and additional funds under new business. Are there any other additions?
I have no additions.
Okay, hearing none, I'm going to approve. We can approve the budget or the agenda. Okay, old business. Well, first of all, welcome everybody. Hopefully you're all doing fine, and I'll keep trying to get into my face. So anyway, first of all, review. Not always good news, but let's review the legislative budget.
All right, that's my.
But before we do that, the one thing I did forget to do is have a roll call. So either Karen or Malia, could you call the roll?
Yes. Okay. For the record, my name is Karen Parkman, and I'm the Director of Administration for the agency. Today we have present Chair Doherty.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Present.
Director Nguyen.
Present. And of course yourself, also on the
committee. And of course myself, yes. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to old business, reviewing the legislative budget.
And that's me. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to see the headlines. I haven't seen a full report, but I do know that yesterday the revised May forecast was released for the state of Oregon. And I understand that I haven't seen any details on it, but it came in less than expected.
Yes,
We're
it was quite a bit down.
Okay, well, you know more about it than I do so far. I know it was down, and according to our chair, it was quite a bit down. Although that doesn't directly affect us because we're self-funded, it is a potential hit because we were hoping to get some extra money from the legislature for the next biennium. I've been called into Ways and Means and will be there on Monday, and I will learn more about exactly what that means at that time. So for now, we continue as is until the legislature, the Ways and Means tells me more of what they'd like me to do. At this point, it does not impact anything else. We have no reason to change anything that we're doing. We will wait and see and address any concerns after such time. That's it on the legislative budget.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Lindsay, do we have any questions, or Commissioner Fowler?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the second thing is the main crux of this meeting, which is the new business and its hub fund grants and additional funds to distribute. Those are the two things that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be presenting some information, and Commissioner Fowler and I can have some discussion. And hopefully at the end, what we'll do is when we report out to the committee at 1:30, which hopefully I have a link and I can get in, then we will go through and make recommendations then to the entire commission. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like me to go ahead and cover what we have so far, Chair?
Yes. Why don't we go through and have on the new business, the hub fund grants.
Great. So I'm pleased to, and the people that have these grants are not on this call. They have all, I have offered all of them an opportunity to present during the commission meeting on what grants they've requested. For the safety grant, which we did initially, we had $52,000 and we got 2 requests for grants. Both of them looked to me to be pretty realistic. One was a for Tillamook, and they'll discuss that. But it was mainly grading hours, tilling, trucking additional sand, and they wanted to request some magnet sweepers. One of the things that's a problem with that track is getting metal in the field, so they're trying to pick up the metal. So those magnets would help a great deal with that. The other, and they would donate all the labor for that. The other one was for Prineville, and Prineville has requested that we pay half the cost of a, I'm gonna say this wrong, I said rock remover, I know that's not what it's called, but the mechanics to remove rocks from the track, which has been an issue there for years. And they're willing to put half the money in for that. With both of those, we still have $14,000 remaining. Again, that's money budgeted for next year. One of the things to be, one of the things that was brought up, especially with Prineville, a consideration for the bigger meeting when we actually can vote on this, is they were hoping they could get the money before next year. So they can get that rock picker in so it can do some good this summer. If that were the case, we'd have to take some of the money that we were going to give out this year and replace it with some of the money we were going to give out next year. Now, next year is just July 1, so it's not a huge deal. But I have some ideas on that I can present to the full commission. Other than that, we didn't get anything else for those two. Now, for the other requests, we got a lot. And I'd like to have the opportunity for each group to be able to present on that. But the short end is we had requests for over $200,000. We said we knew we had 100,000. Thanks to some sharp pencil work with primarily Karen, but Karen and me and Salem, we managed to find 160,000. That's still far short of all the requests. So the committee is going to have to come up with some things that they are willing to not fund. I really love the pictures that Rod sent. I think it's very clear that that thing is not going to stand up much longer unless we get some repairs in that jockey area. And I love the detail that was put on all of these requests. They're all, to me, they all seem like they're reasonable requests. We don't have that much money, but they're all reasonable requests. So I guess, how would you like me to proceed at this point? Would you like me to go over these one by one, or have you had a chance to read them? Or do you want to just wait until the main meeting and ask some questions? Or what would you like to do next?
I think, and Commissioner Fowler, please speak up too, is that I think it would be important for the budget committee to have a little bit of background on this so possibly can answer questions. Just coming from kind of where I'm looking at my philosophy is that there were some requests for things that were incurred 2 years ago, and that's actually in a different budget and so on. And so I feel hesitant for going forward for things like that. But I think the idea of getting things to make the track safe and you know, and that kind of thing, I'm kind of all for. So I think what it is if we can just hear from the people or what you heard and so on and so forth. And so we've got some background on it. And then what the bottom line is at the end, how much do we have and how much don't we have? So, and that would,
I would like
a recommendation to the committee, the commission.
I would like to also state that there are no representatives from the county fair on this call. So we can get some background from the county fairs on this call. We can get input from the people who are on here, but we'll have to wait till the other call to get those. Hopefully they'll be on that call.
Okay.
It looks like Commissioner Fowler has a question, which you probably can't see.
Well, I just,
I'm still trying to do something with this. So Yeah.
I just had some thoughts. It seems that if in the commission meeting, we're going to be going through and hearing from a representative and hearing kind of their pitch on everything they want. I don't know that we need to go through that again in this committee. I've read all the
Okay.
requests. I agree, Commissioner Doherty, that the safety is our first priority. I don't know if I disagree, if I agree with you on the past money that was owed out. I don't know that that's a lot, and I think I'd like to get those people paid. I did see some things that I didn't necessarily put towards safety and questioned kind of the cost benefit of with regard to the Tillamook, the second Tillamook request. Remind me how many race days are there a year?
4.
4. Okay. So I don't know that constructing 2 barns is good cost benefit analysis for us on the Tillamook Fairgrounds.
For the
It's
$38,000, is that what you're referring to? Yeah,
correct.
I was thinking that maybe if we did that, we asked them to at least pay for a portion of it, as opposed to us paying for all of it for a 4-day meet.
Right. Well, it just seems like something where temporary stalls could be brought in, I think probably for a lot less money, and we're only using them for 4 days. So I would agree that if we're going to give them money, it would make sense for them to input some. But then there also their shower, restroom units and installing water and power. They say for the entire racing season, but again, that's 4 days that we're installing water and power on their property, and we're paying the cost of that.
Right.
So those were just my initial thoughts as far as if we're focused on safety first. I'm not sure that I would put either of those in the safety category, and I'd rather see money, if we had extra money, go to purses than those kinds of things.
Right. And Karen, before you go, I want to mention one thing is, just so you know, the horses actually go, I believe the majority of the horses go directly from Prineville to Tillamook. So they are there longer than 4 days. Tillamook hosts them for free.
I see. And how many days would that be?
That's closer to a month, isn't it? Let's see. Karen, you had your hand up.
That's what I was gonna comment on, is that I believe that they do have horses there longer between the fairs so that they can leave from Tillamook and go back down to Grants Pass. Isn't that correct, how that works? Rod might be able to comment on that, but there is a time frame that they're there that's longer
Gotcha.
than just the 4 days.
Okay,
Rod?
well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of times, and Randy can vouch for this, a lot of times the HPVA has helped in the past so that horses have a place to stay. Now, there are horses that go to Ferndale, California, but that meet is not known if they're going to continue or not this year. They're putting in for dates this month, and a lot of those Oregon horsemen will go there. But if I could make just one comment, I think in the future, years ago, we really got in the weeds of things with exactly what Commissioner Fowler is talking about. We got in the weeds with trying to support a whole bunch of projects at fairgrounds and different things that really didn't justify how many days we're racing at those places. And we built barns in different places, and it was great at the time and people really appreciated it. But it got to the point where there was so many requests for things outside of the realm of racing and safety that it just really got to get bogged down. And then there really had to be something that caused it to rein it in. And I would just make a comment that in the future, maybe this is done in a different way, because you're always going to get way more requests than what there is money. And there's going to be a lot of hardship or heartache for people that don't get it. And so to try not to create that situation, I think this process needs to be changed a little bit. And that's just my opinion. So.
Right. It's a little difficult because we really need to show transparency and give everybody an opportunity. But by doing that, we are opening ourselves up for more work. Or we
Yeah.
are going to have to make those decisions. So that's a good comment, something that we can certainly look at. And I do think that going back to our principles of safety in purses will help us filter that out.
Yeah.
I agree
Right.
with that. And I think I think adding to infrastructure, again, on a place where we're not there very often, that's completely different from like Rod's request for money for the jockey room, because that's going to our jockeys, and I just see that as a very different infrastructure request, because it is going to support the jockeys, which goes, I think, towards safety.
And we're the only
Right.
one that use that building at the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds doesn't use that building year round for anything else.
Okay, that's good clarification. Other comments, because Connie, do you have more that you want to say on this, on what the requests are? And what I'd just like to see is just saying, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, say what you were going to say first, Chair. You know me, I always talk.
No, it was just if you need to go through in more detail what some of the requests were, and so on, because it looks like some of the documents that we're kind of looking at was that there are some things that we can deal with the leftover money now. I'm going to call it the leftover money. And then also things that we can put into the 25-27 biennium.
Right.
So
and
maybe if there's some sort of a clarification between
Yeah.
that, and then that way, yeah.
I do have some ideas on that, depending on how much money we actually want to fund on these. And I can come up with a metrics at that point. Hang on just a second. I did make some notes. Next ORC meeting. So for one thing, portable stalls, jockey building for Union, and sand and grading for Tillamook. If we approve those, which I don't know if we will or not, those are things, for example, that could probably wait until July to be distributed. There's several things in here that could be waited until July to distribute. So I think first we decide what it is that we want to fund, that is going to go the most towards safety and purses. And then I think we need to decide which we give out now, what's most urgent to give out now, and what can wait until July 1st to give out. One of the things on these requests that I do want to make a note of is I did notice that there was purse money, and I apologize because the way I sent it out initially was confusing. There was purse money requested for 25-27. This money that we have, the 160,000, is for this biennium. We can get away with this summer, but we can't go into next year. It can't go into 2026.
Right.
So that is one thing where, maybe we can say, we can do half that money or something, because we have to get that money out immediately. As a matter of fact, Karen has already been directed to clear his calendar for tomorrow. So whatever we approve, she can start working on getting those checks cut immediately so we can get this money out to you guys.
Right. And just because as I said, I can't see you. So just so I know on what was sent out, specifically, what were those things that need to be going out now?
The things
the things that were not highlighted?
Actually, the things that they really need now to make the tracks safer is the rock pickers, and then I need to hear from Cami on what, like the hot walker and stuff. I don't know. The only thing I absolutely know, well, obviously, I mean, Rod needs his money to fix that I assume you would fix that right away, the jockey air room.
Yeah, I would get it scheduled. I mean, I don't, the roof, obviously this time of year, it's not as crucial. I got to get the inside fixed and the roof I'll get scheduled as soon as they could get on it as far as replacing the roof and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I think really we're looking at a $44,000 deficit. So I will be willing to make some recommendations based on what everybody else thinks. And for example, if we decide not to do the portable stalls or to do less of them, that could be some money that goes towards it. We may decide to lessen the purses. There's a lot of options. I'd like to hear from all the commissioners before we move forward. But once we do that, I think at the end of that call or the end of that meeting, we need to decide what 52,000 can wait till July 1 to go out.
Yeah.
And that way we make
And
sure we're getting the most critical money out first. Karen?
And so that's what I would kind of like to see, just because going into the meeting this afternoon, I'd just like to have something a little more concrete. And what you just said was, to me, pretty concrete. So,
Rod?
Yeah, I just, I haven't talked to Cami about this, so I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but the sand that Cami has down for $3,800 is the same amount of sand I just put on our track for $51,000. And my concern is it takes somebody's, okay. It takes a certain kind of sand to put on a racetrack. It can't just be any sand. And so my concern is what kind of sand that they are actually putting on a racetrack, because it has to be a wash sand. It has to be kind of a mason sand. And you shouldn't just put any kind of sand on a racetrack. And so my concern is the sand is maybe not the right kind of sand. And like I said, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but.
Right, and I appreciate that. Would you mind giving her a call between now and the next meeting and talking to her about that so she can present more realistic on that?
Sure.
That would be
Yeah.
helpful. Last thing
Yeah.
we want to do is have somebody put something on the track and spend a lot of money that's going to make it worse.
Right. Yeah.
You're on mute, but you're on, Chair.
I fixed it myself. I was like a 30-year-old.
I'm proud of you.
Technology. I don't know what. I had to actually go through and re-upload Microsoft Teams and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so where are we?
Can I add
In the
something?
budget thing. Yes, please, Commissioner.
Thank you. I was just thinking that if one of the things, I see that the Tillamook requested their stuff for the next biennium, but it seems like the rock picker as well as the magnet is kind of something that we definitely want to have sooner rather than later. So
Yes.
I just thought I'd throw it out there. And I also noticed in their proposal that they were willing to let everybody else use that magnet. So if there are other places where metal might be an issue, that would be available to the other fair meets and Grants Pass.
Yes, I agree with you. And I thought that was a good proposal, and something that really showed the safety and also the idea of sharing it. And I think that's very important. So that's something that we may want to, as I'm looking at now, that rock picker looks like it's something that we wouldn't want to approve. At least I would, my suggestion would be we approve that. Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so if we do that, what else are we looking at? And what I'm looking at is the bottom line as to what we've got if we do that and we do some other things and add money to the purses, how much are we gonna have back?
So I think what we need to look at is why are the 44,000 we're not gonna fund?
That's what I was just gonna say as
Yeah.
well. I think we need to look at what's on these lists that we aren't gonna fund. And if we're still left with a deficit, then we start with purses equally to everybody, however much money we have to come up with, or we're still at a deficit for.
I agree. I agree.
I think that's what you bring to the commission is, we have this budget. Between the two bienniums, we have a deficit of 44,000. I'm sure we can find the $29.50.
Mhm.
And we want to hear from everyone. We want to have an eye on safety and purses first. We want to have an eye on what can help all the fair meets, not just one of them, when possible. We also want to look at anybody who is putting their own skin in the game. For example, for the rock picker, they're willing to put half of it in. Or, if they're willing to get volunteers to put it together or other things like that, I think are helpful. And then, maybe some of these things we're just gonna have to forgo, like restroom showers. I mean, I get that, but maybe they're gonna have a compelling story that will make you change your mind. Maybe they'll come through and say, this is why we need this, and you may change your mind.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, if they could get half the money from something else even, or really more than that, because it helps them all year long. The other thing to remember is we may still get money from 3101 from that bill. We don't know. Based on the forecast, I'm not absolutely sure that's a huge possibility. So we need to assume this is all we're going to get.
Okay,
Can I throw something else out there?
please.
Sure.
If we rejected the two infrastructure things in Tillamook, that would be our entire deficit.
Yeah. I was actually.
I mean,
thinking-
I'm not trying to say we should just stiff Tillamook, but I'm just looking at the numbers, and between the barns they want to build and the restrooms and showers, that's our whole deficit.
Yeah. And I was looking,
Awesome.
I think we're kind of thinking the same thing. And it's not that it's not important, and I think that Tillamook does a great job and these kind of things, but maybe this is something that we can put off until the next biennium. And so
Yeah.
what we're looking at is what we need to deal with now, and those might be two things that might be a little higher priority in the 25-27 biennium. If that's possible.
Yeah, and then maybe going forward, they can be working on a way to share some of those costs.
Right.
Get some sponsors to pay for half of them and present us with a model that's better.
Right.
So
think
I'm
Karen
gonna
wants to-
highlight those two as, and Karen has her hand up and I'm talking and not even paying attention. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself for doing as well as I am today.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what you said, really, that was it. It's the infrastructure piece, like Lindsay was talking about, is it would seem like the fairgrounds themselves or Tillamook themselves would work on that in conjunction with maybe some other sponsorship. Maybe we can contribute, but not pay for the whole thing, because it's not just racing that benefits. I'm sure they do horse shows and whatever else they do would be in those stalls and showers and whatever else. So yeah, agree on that.
Yep. Okay, so it looks like what we've done of the material that was sent out is that, other than, and as I say, something that we can put off hopefully until the next biennium, is the more of the infrastructure things that they had at Tillamook, we put off and not pay for right now. And then that would make up for the $44,000 deficit that we have, and we could approve the other things. Am I on the right track, or?
Yeah, if everybody else agrees. And then with that said, we would have to decide, we would just have to ask who can wait until July 1st. And hopefully people will volunteer and say, I can. And then we can take that 52,000 out of that.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
aren't a
I'm
lot
sure
of
some
these,
of these, yeah, like the purse money,
yeah, that's
Randy,
what I was just
would
gonna
it kill you to
suggest.
wait until July 1st to get 52,000 of that 57? Or do you need it before then? I'm
So
just
it could
throwing
be,
that out
it
because
could
it's
be
a,
kind of it could be kind of split, I suppose. Because we got union and the greater part of Grants Pass, but the extra purse money for Prineville and Tillamook would come in after July 1.
okay.
I
I'll
think
play
that,
around with the numbers between now and then and see what I can come up with. Karen has another question.
So I was just going to say that as close as we can get to zero limitation left this biennium, the better, because the money's the money. What we have now is going to be our beginning balance. It stays as our ending balance, becomes our beginning balance, but then that money goes toward next biennium's limitation. So if we don't use all that we can down to the last drop, without going over, in our limitation this time, we'll be working against next time's limitation. So that has bearing.
Mhm.
We're not sure they could, because they could reduce our limitation is really the.
Yeah. Well, Karen, maybe you and I can go through one more time with the budget numbers and see if there's any way we can pull up even a little more into this biennium so we
Yeah.
avoid a sweep.
Yeah.
Rod?
I
Okay,
can,
Rob, yeah, I was gonna say Rob has his hand up.
I can definitely wait if that helps.
Okay, because I say, I think the whole purpose of this is it's like everything, we want to do everything, but unfortunately the resources aren't there. So Rob, I appreciate that very much. So,
And by my quick calculations, between now and the end of the Grants Pass meet, we would need 33,000 for the commission's part of the purses of the 57. And then we'd match that, obviously.
okay. And as I say, the intent here is to go through and do that. As I say, we need to wait until this session is over, the legislative session, to see what the budget is actually going to be. Okay, so I think, so a lot of the things that we're talking about is depending on whether things don't change, this is what we're going to do. But if things do change, then we're going to have to come back to the group. Okay,
And that's for the next biennium.
exactly. That's for the
Do
next.
whatever we can for this biennium, and the next biennium is always with the fingers crossed on it.
Yeah, it's like what we've got, spend it so they don't take it.
Yep.
How's that for the philosophy?
but if
Sounds good.
I'm right, the only thing that we're looking at for the next biennium is the 14.5 from Tillamook. Is that right? Because
Well,
I'm looking,
Now, to actually make this work out well is we're pulling some of the money that would go to next biennium into this biennium.
right, I understand that part, but as far as all the other requests for funds are for this biennium that we're discussing. Is that right?
That's technically correct, although the purse money, they're asking for 24,000 for the next 2 years. We can only give them 12,000. We can only give them for 1 year for the
Right.
quarter horses.
Right.
So we just need them to clarify, and Mr. Nelson is on. The way that it was put in there is it would be 12,000 for this summer and 12,000 for the next summer. Now, if you only have this summer, because that's all we can get that money
Mhm.
out for, do you want 24 for one summer, or do you only need 12,000?
Mr. Nelson,
You're on mute.
you're on mute, sir. There we
Trying
go.
to get off of mute. Okay. the way we calculated that was basically to keep in compliance with the notion, and you have conflicting notions before the budget committee, in my mind only, and perhaps only in my mind, that to treat all of these race meets fairly and equally with equity, we only have a few days of racing left in this year. We can't go spending on races that we've already run in the past. And so it's a conflicting situation where we have the majority of our racing that does occur in the next biennium. However,
Right.
your limitations are up for June 30th of this year. So it's just a natural conflict, and I don't
It
know
is a
how you
conflict.
can resolve that. Yeah, I don't know how you
They-
can really
well-
resolve that.
What we can do before you go on is we have in the past given money out for the summer race meets from this biennium. So we can do this summer meet. We just can't give money for the following summer meet.
Yeah,
Right. However, yes, I understand that. And so if we could have the $12,000, we could postpone the other $12,000 into the next biennium. However, we've already submitted a budget to you for our next biennium, which does not include these funds. So, but that would be, yeah, they're easy to add back in, but but technically, if you get audited, for example, in the Secretary of State's offices, they're picking on the Racing Commission more than they have in years gone by. And so it's a little more of a conflict in our mind, for the bienniums don't match the racing season. And
They don't.
our view of the racing season is through the middle of October. And we're trying to, with this, I just might make a comment on that we've discussed among ourselves, that we created the hub situation as an alternative to alternate revenue for Portland Meadows and MKC. When they both disappeared, now you've got the responsibility of remodeling that into trying to save racing at what we have now as 4 remaining entities. And and they lap over biennia, and it's a very difficult situation. You're getting an amount of money, and you're giving fairs an amount of money off the top, which is a majority share of the money, and leaving $1 million left for trying to do what you're doing today, and hitting a mark that is undefinable because of the overlap of the racing season, which is not just doesn't match with the biennial structure of state government. So good luck, I guess, is the end of all of that, because it's very difficult to do and to make it make sense with somebody looking over your shoulder. So that's all. I would, as I have thought, it would be handy for us on the requesting end. For example, if the budget committee would define the hub fund distribution system with the subcommittee or whatever you choose to do, and say, okay, this is how we're going to operate it. This is going to be it was originally set up to be for meet operators and purses. Now that's kind of shuffled around. Some of the previous commissions built a $300,000 barn out in the middle of Harney County. And
that went well.
That was a bust. And so anyway, it would be good if you would define the sideboards and for the applicant, so that they know what fits and what doesn't fit, instead of waiting till the budget committee meets and says, okay, what can we squeeze in here and what can we squeeze out? And that's a difficult thing to do on the fly. So that's, we can do with the $12,000. Yes, we can. We also, and I heard mentioned earlier by the director that we had made a request, I think a year ago, for reimbursement of money. And our view of that was that, we got calls from the racing secretary saying, we can't fill these races. Can you fill them? And we had to say, okay, we'll dig deeper into our savings account and fill them, and then make an application for this pot or other pots that are undefined and say, okay, yeah, we'll fill the races so that the fairs have a program to present to their customers, and which I think is the mission of the commission and the mission of the budget committee. And we do want to have a complete program that they can offer to their attendees. So we have another request that has been with you for over a year now for the 27-2. We can do without that for another year, but it seems handy now to, if you could reimburse us for that. We just simply stepped up when others couldn't.
Mhm.
And,
We have
and
to-
I would like to reimburse for that. I mean, that's me personally. I'm only one person though, and I don't have a vote.
I would as well.
Yeah, I
Just
would
so you
too.
know.
And it's the idea of whether the money's there. Mr. Nelson, I appreciate your input. I also appreciate the suggestions of what we can possibly do down in the future when it comes to the budgeting process and that kind of thing. And so we appreciate those. And I wrote them down, and I know that Connie probably did too. And it was the idea of defining, more of the hub fund distribution system, and defining, the sidebars and stuff for the organizations. And so I think that that's something that we'll work on between now and the next budgeting process. So, okay, so where are we?
I'll mute myself again.
Okay, who's got their hand up? Hand up. Who wants to speak? Rob, is that you? Or
I'm
Connie?
just going to say, I think that this meeting has been extremely productive. And I think that we have come up with some good compromises. We're not the full commission, but I think it's a good start. And this is how we should be doing things.
Yeah.
It's working together to try to say, what can we do and what
Oh,
can't
yeah.
we? And I like the idea of being more specific on, if it's something that is only going to benefit 5 days a year, we're not going to look at it as much as we are if it's something that's going to benefit for a longer period of time. That just
It's
makes
called, we
sense.
may not build you a barn. We probably will not build you a barn. So go from there. Okay, so Connie, do you have your hand up or just adjusting something? You're on mute, Connie.
I was adjusting something, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
wondering, did you decide to have the associations present sort of their pitch in the next meeting or in this meeting? I'm confused.
I wanted to have it in the next meeting, so it's
The
public.
one, yeah, the
Okay.
1:30 meeting. Yeah.
Okay,
so
I will go back on mute then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so where we are now, I think our recommendation to, or are we going to be making a recommendation to the full commission would be, and Lindsay, I think you pretty much said what it was, and that's the idea of funding, other than like the two things for Tillamook, is to fund those, and then the Tillamook things we would look at in the next biennium. Is that pretty much where we're coming from?
Assuming that Tillamook, I mean, if they don't have money for temporary stalls and horses are going to be there for a month, and that's going to cost them $6,000, for example, I would agree with you unless Tillamook says something that makes us think, okay, there's actually not going to be stalls there for the horses that are going to be there for a
Okay,
month.
so we'll just wait until we hear from them. How's that?
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, I agree with you.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Any other comments, questions, input? Okay, so it looks pretty, I won't say cut and dry, because no one can deal with money, none of it is. But at least there's a list of it looks like money is going to purses and money is going to things like medical staff and I mean, most of the money is going to the purses, but also some other things. Especially, I think that rock pickers is a really good idea, and that's something that really needs to be done. So,
And the magnet
yes. And
and the jockey.
yes. So we've got the safety and then we've got the others. So anyway, so any other questions, any other comments? Okay, I think that almost is other than public comment, which we've been talking about. That's all we have on the agenda for the budget meeting.
If you need a motion to adjourn, then I will make that motion.
Okay, I will take your motion to adjourn. Okay, are the two of us in favor? Yes.
Yeah. See you guys at 1 or 1:30, whenever it
1:30.
is.
Yes, and hopefully, I mean, now I'll have faces, so. Anyway, thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate the input. Very productive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.